Small form factor linear has become a staple of lighting designs for the last decade. At the core, it's tape and extrusion, and it makes details like millwork, cabinetry, under cabinet, coves, sparkle. It's just become so important to get that spec right. Luminii has been an industry leader in this field, and they continue to do so. Today, we're going to talk about how they've introduced a new tier of tape and extrusion that's going to round out designs and make it easier for you to meet the budgets that you have on your future work. So let's go. 10 in the shed. If you've been with me for a while, then you know that during the pandemic, I literally locked myself in a little wooden box and recorded lighting demos for various manufacturers that SDA represents. Well, a couple things have changed. Number one, those videos are not just going to live on the Delivered Lumens channel anymore. They're living directly on SDA Lighting and Controls, so make sure you give us a follow. The other thing that's changed is the space. So call it a much bigger shed, but 10 in the shed is now going to happen here at SDA in our offices. We have access to this enormous space, and today we're talking about something really small in tape and extrusion, but you can see with a space like this, we're going to have the capability of doing much bigger demonstrations. I'm really excited about it. Okay, if you go on the Luminii website today, you're going to find many different sub-brands: Luminii, Optic Arts, and the new Basics, which is what we're going to talk about today. I want to sort of take a step back and make sure we understand what the differences are between Optic Arts, Luminii, and Basics. Okay, so at the very core of it, Luminii has always made finished small form factor linear products, okay? Built in the factory to specific lengths with drawings and approvals, built to specification. Optic Arts is a sub-brand of Luminii, and that's really the core of the tape and extrusion side of things, right? So the tape and extrusion coming from Optic Arts are the engines that create Luminii fixtures, but they can be specified either way, and there's pros and cons to each approach. One approach that I think is pretty strong here is if you do finished fixtures, you're removing that in-field labor at, in New York City that can be well over $100 an hour, and you're moving that labor into the factory where ostensibly it's less expensive. However, there are also benefits to doing tape and extrusion. If you're doing runs of indeterminate length, or field dimensions are not settled, or you don't have time to do the shop drawing process, then it completely makes sense to go with a tape and extrusion solution. Whether you specify through Optic Arts or through Luminii, the light engines and performance will be the same. The thing to understand is which approach you'd like to go with. And we're not going to talk about warm dimming or RGBW today. Those are sort of separate families that we can do a whole other 10 in the shed segment on how Luminii handles warm dimming and RGB and tunable white. Today we're going to stick to static white. All right, so let's jump right into it. The core engines here are the LL42 and the LL72. And in case that's not clear, when I get real close to the camera, you can see what the difference is between the two. LL42 a slightly wider pitch, LL72 a slightly tighter pitch. What that allows is dot-free illumination in any frosted lens, which you see on the website. So let's talk about some of the performance parameters. Here's a little trick. If you're on the Luminii website and you see LL42 and LL72, you can click on any of those. As long as they're static white, you click on that icon, that spec sheet, you're going to get one cut sheet that shows you the chart for both LL42 and LL72. The chart, this main chart that you're looking at right now is probably the most important chart on the whole page because it tells you everything you need to know about performance of the tape right up front. I'm not going to read this whole chart to you from beginning to end, but here are some of the key things. Lumen outputs are going to range from 132 lumens per foot all the way up to 537 lumens per foot. In the Optic Arts family, you are always better than 95 CRI, no matter what color temperature you specify. And those CCT ranges are from 1900 Kelvin, super warm, really, really beautiful, all the way up to 4100 Kelvin, really crisp, really high color rendering. And I mentioned this before, but LL42 or LL72 will remain dot-free under a frosted lens. Something you're going to notice on these charts, however, is that under the Optic Arts family, we run into efficacies that are between 90 and 97 lumens per watt. There are cases where either you're trying to meet lighting power density or you've got really tight energy code where those efficacies won't work. In those cases, or if you need really high output, Luminii also offers their LLHE series, which stands for high efficiency. There's LLHE 48 and LLHE 64. Okay. LLHE 48, LLHE 64. Again, this is really just about the difference in LEDs pitch, right? The distance between the LEDs on the board. The 64 is obviously a little bit tighter packed together. We can do some absolutely enormous outputs with these two tapes. VHO will get you up to 995 lumens per foot. The XHO gives us a ridiculous 1,119 lumens per foot. I'm not sure what you're laying with that, but if you need 1,000 lumens tape per foot, we have it with the LLHE 64XO. So the idea here is that these tapes, the HE series is slightly different from the typical Optic Arts because to get to those higher efficacies, we did have to trade off on color quality just a little bit. So I mentioned before that the Optic Arts is going to always be above 95 CRI. In the HE world, we stay above 92 CRI. I know, it's brutal, but it was required to reach the efficacies that we're talking about here in terms of that really, really high output. Also, your CCTs are slightly different. So your CCT range starts at 2200 Kelvin and goes up to 4100 Kelvin. You don't have that 1900 Kelvin option out of the HE series. One other thing to note, and I've been warned about this before, is HE tape will not match LL 42 or 72 exactly. As a sort of specification warning, if you're putting these two things directly next to each other in the same color temperature, very discerning eyes will see a difference between the two. That's just something to be aware of as you're designing your spaces. Something I wanted to mention really quickly is Luminii's introduction of mini connectors. These are mechanical, solder-free connections that can be how you connect on your jumper to reach out to your power supply. It could be how you connect two different pieces of tape if you're going around a corner. It could be a jumper. It can be all kinds of different things. The main thing to understand about it is that it saves your contractor having to solder things in the field. And they were designed so that you can put two pieces together, tape together at the solder pad, clamp them down, just using a pair of needle nose pliers, and then it will make a rigid, both mechanical and electrical connection at those connection points. So it's a really, really nice feature that I don't think many tape manufacturers have, and it fits within all of the standard Optic Arts extrusions. All right, let's talk basics, and not just because I'm a basic white guy. Let's talk about the new series from Luminii called Basics. On the website, you're going to see the Luminii brand, the Optic Arts brand, and now the new Basics brand. Basics is essentially a sub-tier of tape and extrusion from Luminii. Here's the thing. We know value engineering happens, right? And we know that when jobs get competitive and there's a ton of tape and extrusion out there on the market, you need an option that's going to meet the budget of the job, but we're hoping to do that while maintaining the quality of light that you specified when you originally specified Luminii. So the engineers at Luminii went back to the drawing board and they started looking at how to create a line of tape that did just that, and that's what the Basics line is all about. So Basics comes in just one pitch right now. Basics comes in the 42 pitch, right? So matching that LL42 distance of LEDs. There are some compromises, however. The Basics series runs in 3 wattages, 2, 4, and 6 watts per foot, topping out at about slightly less than 600 lumens per foot. So it's not going to be your high output runner, and it doesn't have a ton of variation in between. 2100, 2400, 2700, 3000, and 3500 Kelvin as far as CCTs. So no super low end and no super high end CCTs with the Basics line. Basics is meant to be sold in bulk. It's meant to be sold in reels and get to jobs to do those cove applications, right? Those miles and miles of cove you're doing with tape and extrusion, let Basics be the option for that. You will see there's also only at this time 6 extrusions for the Basic family. These are really meant to hit your core applications, right? So your under cabinets, your cove lighting, your accents, your millwork, the things that you do day in and day out. If you look at the Optic Arts side, there are dozens of extrusions in different sizes and shapes to meet very specific design requirements. So these are some of the compromises that come with specifying basic. The basic family is a great way to meet the bulk of your needs, especially on repeating details, without blowing the budget. Okay, so there you have it. This is a really easy, quick walkthrough of how Luminii parses out finished fixtures with the Luminii line, tape and extrusion, performance grade, spec grade, tape and extrusion through Optic Arts, and then more VE contractor grade tape with basics. And I think what we demonstrated here with this demonstration is basics, not so basic. You can use it for that VE really tight budget job, but it's not going to sacrifice the quality of light that you specified when you chose Luminii at the start. Thank you for watching this, and if you're interested in the newest small form factor linear from Luminii, stick around because that video is coming up